The moment you fight evil as a power, you crown it. You seat it on a throne in your own consciousness and then marvel that it speaks with authority. We have done it so habitually that we have called the habit holy, constant vigilance, constant resistance, constant adrenaline in the name of God. But I ask you quietly and without condemnation, what is this doing to our consciousness? What temple are we building if hour after hour our inner altar is an emergency room? Do you not see, beloved, how a belief becomes a power by our consent? Resist not evil is not a slogan to be stitched on a pillow. It is a scalpel that separates spiritual reality from the fever of the mind. Jesus did not play a game with words. He looked at the very root of human bondage and laid the axe there. He did not say, approve evil. He did not say, be lazy. He did not say, close your eyes to wrong. He said, resist not evil, Matthew 5:39. And with those three words, he removed from us the one hidden act that perpetuates the show, our belief that evil is a power. Now, we are not here to deny moral responsibility. If a child runs into the street, we reach out and draw them to safety. If a neighbor is hungry, we feed them. If a law must be corrected, we stand in the open and say so. But we do not make a God of danger, hunger, or lawlessness in our consciousness. We do not bow to them as powers. We do not pour our faith into the very images we hope to see dissolved. There is a holy difference between moral action and metaphysical fear-fighting. I once knew a man, let me call him Thomas, who kept a whistle on his nightstand to rouse himself for warfare prayers every 2 hours. He blew the whistle, woke himself with a jolt, and attacked shadows. By dawn he trembled with victory, so he said, yet his nerves were frayed, his home uneasy, his work scattered. He had crowned the thing he feared by rehearsing its power all night. One evening, sitting in silence together, he finally asked, if God is omnipotent, whom have I been fighting? That question was the beginning of his rest. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46:10, is not a strategy. It is a revelation of one power. Take no thought, the Master said, Matthew 6. Why? Because your Father knoweth. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, Luke 12:32. If that is truth, what are these other powers that you and I have been training to outshout? God is, or else God isn't. There are not two. The moment we accept two powers, we step out of omnipotence and into warfare, and in that moment the dream has all the artillery. Resist not evil cuts the fuse. It is not passivity. It is the end of a two-power universe within you. It is the relinquishment of that inner consent which furnishes evil a platform and a microphone. It is the refusal to make an idol of the scarecrow. The field still needs harvesting. Yes, your hands will work, but you need not stop at the edge of the field to negotiate terms with straw and old clothes. Drop it out of your belief and it falls away. Let us take a four-square stand at the very outset. We live in a universe of one power. We will act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly, but we will not set up a battlefield in our hearts. We will not try to use truth as a club. Truth is not a tool in the hand of fear. You cannot use truth. Now God can use us, and when God uses us, the compulsion to fight subsides into assurance. The fever breaks. The adrenaline drains away. And prayer begins to be what it always was, something from God to you. For tonight, make this your inner posture. Take no thought, refuse the inner contest, and let the word declare itself where you have been trying to declare war. Resist not evil. Let it sound in your ear without argument, without hurry. Resist not evil, not as a slogan to win a debate, but as a lamp set in your temple. Resist not evil. Let it descend from the lips into the heart. where law is written. For this is not my word, nor yours. It is the Master's word. I say unto you that ye resist not evil. Matthew 5:39. If we will let it be what it is, a commandment that reveals a universe of one power, it will do its own separating work within us, like a two-edged sword that divides fear from faith. Now at once the warrior mind is offended. At once it rises up, and we do not scold it for rising. It asks what you and I have asked. Are you telling me to let harm happen, to excuse wrongdoing, to do nothing while injustice marches? Beloved, do not hush those questions. Bring them into the light. For the Christ never silences honest fear with pious wallpaper. He answers it with reality. What is Jesus addressing here? Outer conduct alone, or the inner posture that creates bondage? If you will notice the Sermon on the Mount, he moves the battleground every time. Ye have heard, but I say unto you. He takes murder and moves it to anger. He takes adultery and moves it to the gaze. He takes praying and moves it from public noise to the closet where the Father sees in secret. He is not making us passive. He is making us truthful. He is relocating the issue from behavior as spectacle to consciousness as cause. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. Therefore, the warfare, if you insist on having it, would also be within you. And that is precisely what he dissolves with three words: resist not evil. If God is, or else God isn't, then there are not two powers to trade blows in your breast. The moment you may accept two, we step out of omnipotence and into strategy. We begin to plot, to brace, to bargain with shadows. And take no thought, Matthew 6, ceases to be our way. Fear becomes our counselor. Fear is very expensive counsel. It charges interest in sleeplessness and exacts payment in confusion. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. Do you see? To be overcome of evil is to confer power upon it by resistance. To overcome with good is to abide in one power and let good be itself without anxiety. That is not passivity, that is spiritual sanity. All right, then how shall we walk on Tuesday morning when the wrongdoer is loud and the need is plain? We do what is right, of course. We feed, we protect, we speak, we repair, but we do not enthrone the appearance as a rival deity in our consciousness. Non-resistance is not non-action. Non-resistance is the refusal to generate a second power inside while we are doing the next right thing outside. Put up again thy sword into his place, the Master said, Matthew 26:52. He did not say abandon love. He did not say abandon courage. He said, in effect, abandon the inner theater of force where fear and pride hand each other weapons. Resist not evil is the cancellation of credulity, not the cancellation of conscience. It is the end of metaphysical fist-fighting, not the end of moral clarity. When we withdraw the subtle worship that fear offers to the image of evil, we discover how often our methods were the ego trying to use truth to swing an elephant around our head with the left hand and call it victory. Give up that labor. Take no thought. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, but let there be no idol on the altar, no second power glowing with the oil of your attention. Hear it again as a refrain that orders the inner house. Resist not evil. Let it say within you, God is, or else God isn't. Let it loosen your grip on the club and open your hand to the presence. And you will find that right action becomes simple, almost obvious, while the frantic contest evaporates. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:32. In that pleasure there is no rival. In that kingdom there is work to do, oh yes, but there is no war to maintain. God is, or else God isn't. Let that be said not once, but until it rings where habit has built a second altar. God is, or else God isn't. If omnipotence is truth, what is this power that we imagine glaring across from it? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Mark 12:29, not two. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Isaiah 45:5. If we accept this not as poetry but as law, then at the very moment we grant a rival, we step out of omnipotence and into warfare. No man can serve two masters, Matthew 6:24. Two masters means two fears, two strategies, two altars, and the soul is torn between them. Now, what is evil in this light? Not an entity, not a substance, not a second life. In spiritual discernment, evil is a claim, a suggestion, a false appearance that borrows your consent as its only breath. The prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me. John 14:30. Why nothing? Because there was no consent, no inner hook, no second altar. Darkness is not a presence that fights light. It is the absence that vanishes when light is present. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. John 1-5. You do not argue with the dark. You do not wrestle it to the floor. You do not tape affirmations to the bulb. You turn on the light. When you and I consent to one power, the show that lived on our attention runs out of tickets. Consider how subtle our idolatry has been. We have organized calendars around warfare, measured devotion by the volume of our alarm, and called it faithfulness. We have kept an inner siren wound up lest the devil slip by while we blink. We have taken roll call of symptoms, rehearsed the news of calamities, and then prayed as if God were in need of our briefings. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, Exodus 22:3, is not a museum commandment. It is living instruction. To organize life around defeating evil is to worship it with attention, to baptize fear with holy language, to keep the stage lit for the very pageant we say we despise. Beloved, can you not see how the golden calf is now a calendar, a method, a vocabulary of perpetual emergency? If God is, or else God isn't, then method must change. You cannot fight an illusion into nothingness. You cannot club a mirage with texts and make it bleed reality. You cannot use truth. Truth can use us. But truth will not use a hand already clenched around a weapon. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 is not the strategy of a timid heart. It is the method of one power recognized. Take no thought, Matthew 6, becomes possible when you are no longer managing two kingdoms. Perfect love casteth out fear, 1 John 4:18, because love acknowledges no rival, entertains no second throne, lends no consent to the whisperer. All right, then what do we do with an appearance that stands before us? We refuse it the dignity of a second power in our consciousness. We do not deny that it appears. We deny that it is supported by God. We let the light be light. We let the word declare itself. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John 8:32. Not the wrestling match, not the intensity of our scolding, not the inventory of error taken in pious tone. Knowing truth is not gathering data about evil. It is yielding to the allness of God until suggestion starves for lack of our fear. Now this demands a foursquare stand. It is not a mood. It is a consecration. When the mind begins to calculate countermeasures, we answer it with our maxim, God is or else God isn't. When fear lines up its arguments, we answer, one Lord. When habit points to the headlines, we answer, the kingdom of God is within you, Luke 17:21. Then, and only then, our outer action, if any is required, proceeds without a battlefield in the breast. The show has lost its stage. The actor has no audience, and the soul, no longer split between two masters, finds itself quietly, simply in the government of one. Take no thought, not as a pious pose that forgets to buy bread or to lock the door at night, but as a refusal to nurse, narrate, and inflate appearances into deities. Take no thought. Matthew 6 is Jesus' way of unhooking the mind from the pipeline of fear through which suggestion becomes a spectacle. How does temptation work? It knocks as a suggestion just a whisper, a possibility, a what if. Then we toy with it. Fascination begins. We study it, we trace its genealogy, we tell it to friends, we watch for it in the news. Fear enters, and the whisper gathers costume, soundtrack, and lighting. Before long, we speak of a spirit as if a department has opened in the universe, an office with authority, a budget, and our signature at the bottom. Beloved, fear is not humility. Fear is not reverence. Fear is consent to the belief that something stands up beside God and says, "Me too. There is none else." Isaiah 45:5. To tremble before a suggestion is to sign its passport and usher it through customs into consciousness. That trembling is not the fragrance of holiness. It is the sound of an idol being carved. Perfect love casteth out fear, 1 John 4:18. Not by shouting down an opposite, but by revealing that there never was a rival presence on the floor. God is, or else God isn't. If God is, then what is this shadow but a claim awaiting your attention to make it feel like a power? I knew a woman call her Miriam who heard a cough in the night and instantly unrolled 9 scrolls of forecast. In those 5 minutes of brilliant dread, she did more to enthrone a phantom than a year of noisy enemies could have done. By morning, her household had a case. Yet, when she learned to be still for 60 seconds and let the inner word say, "It is I, be not afraid," John 6:20, the show browned out for lack of current. "Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Luke 12:32, whose pleasure? The Father's, not the feverish mind's. The kingdom comes as assurance, not as a wrestling match. Take no thought does not mean ignore your mailbox or be careless with duty. It means do not add your mind to the apparition. Do not be the publicity agent for suggestions. Do not rehearse the lines for the antagonist you secretly hope to fire. The prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me, John 14:30. Why nothing? Because there was no fascination, no fear, no mental hospitality, no room prepared where the guest book could be signed. All right? How do we walk when the knock sounds? Not by counter-knocking, not by inventing shinier thoughts to club the dull thought. You cannot use truth. To try is to stay in the same room, changing chairs. Now God can use us. Prayer becomes, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth," 1 Samuel 3:9. We make a vacuum of ourselves, no opinion to argue, no fear to certify, until presence fills the room. In that presence, fear has nowhere to sit. It is displaced, not defeated, dissolved, not dramatized. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Knowing replaces narrating. Awareness replaces analysis. And the suggestion, starved of your consent, drops its borrowed wings. Hear the diagnosis and treasure it, not as a scold, but as liberation. Fear is the consent that makes a false claim feel like a real power. Withdraw consent. Take no thought. Turn from the mythology to the presence. Let love be itself where you were preparing a courtroom. Then, if action is required, it will be simple and unforced, a Tuesday kindness, clean and quiet, with no idol hidden beneath the apron. You cannot use truth. Let us say it plainly, because our habit is to reach for truth as if it were a wrench to tighten a leaking pipe. But truth is not a tool in the anxious mind's kit. Truth is not something you and I swing at darkness until it yields that very motion. Arming ourselves with holy language to smite a shadow betrays the belief that the shadow has substance. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Zechariah 4-6. The more might you invest, the more war you certify. The more power you attempt to exert, the more you confess two powers, God and the thing that needs beating. Notice our common pattern. We hear a whisper of fear, and immediately we start the engine of affirmations. We declare, we bind, we rebuke, we pace the hallway and quote verses into the air as if the air will surrender. We raise our voice as though volume can improve omnipotence. And all the while, deep beneath the noise, the heart has consented to a simple premise. There is a presence opposed to God that must be managed by technique. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? Matthew 6:27. The Master did not say, take more thought, take louder thought, or take braver thought. He said, take no thought. Matthew 6. You see, the frenzy is not faith. It is the confession that an opposite is real. I knew a young pastor, we will call him Daniel, who could outshout thunder. He wore out 3 microphones in a month, rebuking devils so vigorously that even the choir caught colds. He was sincere. His love was earnest, but he was fighting air, and the air was winning his sleep. One evening, hoarse and exhausted, he sat in the dark of his small office and finally did the one forbidden thing. He ceased. No petition, no declaration, no technique, only speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. 1 Samuel 3-9. He told me later that nothing happened for a long minute except his breathing arriving back from war. Then softly, a word within that was not his own mind. Peace be still, Mark 4:39. Daniel rose and discovered that the monsters needing rebuke were mostly furnished by his fear. His ministry changed that week. He learned that truth cannot be used. Truth can use us. All right. What is this using we have attempted? It is willpower in religious clothing. It is the ego strapping on Scripture as armor and marching out to prove its piety by its victories. But listen to the Christ. I can of mine own self do nothing, John 5:30. If the Christ consciousness voices that, where do you and I get our private arsenal? Will is a fine servant for fastening buttons and catching trains. It is worthless in the presence of the infinite. The strain you feel in combat prayer is diagnostic. It reveals that you have taken your stand in a universe of 2 powers and are trying to manage the second with the first. That is why it backfires. You come away trembling, the problem fattened by your attention, and the mind already drafting the next campaign. The wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God, James 1:20. Wrath here is not only anger, it is that heated effort to make God happen. Put it down. Put up again thy sword into his place, Matthew 26-52. Not because there is nothing to do, but because you have no business staging an inner duel. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good, Romans 12:21. To be overcome is to grant status to a second power and then be hypnotized by it. To overcome with good is to abide in the consciousness of one until the suggestion finds no audience. Perfect love casteth out fear, 1 John 4:18. Not because love shouts louder, but because love acknowledges no rival and therefore does not argue. Then how? If you cannot use truth, what remains? Now God can use us. Prayer becomes not a talking marathon, but a holy hush. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Matthew 6:6. Enter where? Into the secrecy of inner stillness, where you make a vacuum of yourself, no fear to dignify claims, no opinions to parade, no strategy to sell to God. There, abide in me and I in you, John 15:4. The branch does not shout sap into the vine. It rests in its given life, and fruit appears without drama. Consider the lilies, Matthew 6:28. They do not conduct warfare seminars, nor do they draft statements against drought. They receive, and so they reveal. This is not indolence, it is government. The government shall be upon his shoulder, Isaiah 9:6. We lay down my fight and come under his government. In that holy jurisdiction, truth is not a slogan we brandish, but a presence that fills the room. And when presence fills the room, the contest has no air to breathe. Try it in small ways today. Each time you feel the urge to fix the universe with a louder verse, stop, take no thought, whisper within, speak, Lord. Do not reach for the club, open the hand, do not strain, yield, and you will discover that what you had called warfare was largely the ego trying to use truth, and what you will now live as healing is truth using you. Prayer is something from God to you. Let that overturn the old habit at its root. Your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things, Matthew 6:32. If the Father knoweth, what are we doing, bringing him news bulletins and emergency memos? Can you not see the oddity of briefing omniscience? The Master said, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly, Matthew 6:6. Seeth what? Seeth you not your reports, not your strategies, not your list? He sees the heart laid bare of fear, the mind emptied of management, the soul available. Prayer is not our speech to God. Prayer is God's speech in us. Prayer is not the moving of God. It is God moving us. How are we to pray then? Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. 1 Samuel 3-9. That is the posture. We make a vacuum of ourselves. We do not go in to inform. We go in to be informed. We do not carry a sack of petitions as if heaven were a marketplace. We go as children to a Father whose pleasure it is to give. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, Luke 12:32. The kingdom is not a shipment you wring from the warehouse. It is a presence that descends upon a listening heart. Take no thought. Close the door on the traffic of suggestions that would rent a room in your mind. Sit as one who is not in charge of the universe, which blessedly you are not. Be still and let the government be upon his shoulder, Isaiah 9-6. Now, when prayer becomes communion, certain old customs become impossible. Never again can you tell God anything he does not know. Never again can you consult fear for your prayer assignments. Never again can you report evil as if the Almighty were reading yesterday's paper. You no longer enter the closet to work on people or conditions. You enter to consent to God. You no longer pray about a disease, a lack, a storm. You pray into God. And from that center, the storm discovers there is no stage prepared for it. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46-10. Knowing replaces narrating. Assurance replaces argument. Presence replaces posture. I knew a bookkeeper, let us call her Ruth, who stacked her prayers like invoices. Each night she spread them before God as if reconciling the accounts of the day. A cousin's illness, a neighbor's rudeness, a headline's panic, and finally her own fatigue. The stack grew, so did her weariness. One evening she dared to do the forbidden thing. We have been circling it all week. She left the stack in the drawer and simply sat. No report, no bargaining, only speak, Lord. At first she felt rude, as though she had failed to be thorough. Then a hush, not of her making, descended. A sentence arrived within that was not hers. Lo, I am with you alway. Matthew 28-20. It did not fix her cousin's temperature or her neighbor's manners on the spot. It did remove the general from his tent inside her breast. She walked out different, not armed, but governed. And the next day, several accounts settled themselves like paper, finding its own level in a quiet room. When prayer is listening, the compulsion to fight dissolves into divine assurance. You discover that assurance is not a mood you cultivate. It is the afterglow of having heard. Hearing what? Not advice about the problem, but the fact of God. I am that I am. Exodus 3:14. In that fact, resist not evil becomes practical. Why? Because you are no longer facing life alone with your tools and fears. You are no longer the manager of opposites. You have entered the government of one, and in that government you receive direction as simply as breath, a word to speak, a kindness to do, a silence to keep. Moral action remains, of course it does, but the battlefield in the breast is closed for repairs and never reopens. Let this be our reorientation. Prayer is not our attempt to secure outcomes. Prayer is God securing us. It is not a performance. It is a presence. It is not a plea. It is a yielding. Go within, not to say more, but to be more silent than you have ever dared. Take no thought. Whisper only. Speak, Lord. Wait until the word that is not yours rises. When it does, do not hurry to use it. Let it use you. Then resist not evil will no longer offend the warrior mind, because there will be nothing left in you to strap on armor. There will be a branch resting in the vine and fruit appearing without drama. Non-resistance is not non-action. Let us write that on the inner lintel where confusion likes to enter. Non-resistance is the spiritual refusal to make a second power inside. Non-action would be moral negligence. We are not called to negligence. We are called to love. Love acts. Love feeds, protects, tells the truth, shuts the door at night, and opens the door in the morning. Love rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, 1 Corinthians 13:6. But hear me, moral action is one thing, metaphysical resistance is another. Moral action is obedience to love's nature. Metaphysical resistance is the inner confession that evil is a power requiring your fear to run its engine. We can do what is right without making evil real in consciousness. Let us put it plainly. We may set boundaries and keep them, and yet take no thought. We may call an officer when law has been broken, and yet not enthrone the wrongdoer in our imagination. We may leave a dangerous house and lock the gate, and yet refuse to build a shrine to danger in the heart. We may tell the truth in court, we may file a report, we may stop the car at the red light, and all the while, inside, no second altar is lit. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, Matthew 10:16. Wisdom is not panic. Harmlessness is not passivity. Wisdom knows when to draw a boundary. Harmlessness refuses to supply hate as fuel. Consider how the Master himself walked. There were days when he departed thence and came into their synagogue and healed on the Sabbath in the face of scowls, Matthew 12. Moral action. There were hours when they led him unto the brow of the hill, that they might cast him down headlong. But he, passing through the midst of them, went his way, Luke 4:29-30. Not bravado, not a fist fight, simply no inward consent to danger as a power, and so the appearance lost its grip. There was a temple day when zeal for the house of prayer cleansed commerce from the courts, John 2:15. But do you see the thread? Never once did he organize an inner war. The prince of this world cometh and hath nothing in me, John 14:30. Nothing, no fear to certify the claim, no hatred to mirror it, no revenge to fertilize it. Turn the other cheek, Matthew 5:39. Has offended many a brave heart because it was read as self-betrayal. Beloved, do not betray yourself, betray hatred. Refuse it the oxygen of your attention. Turn the other cheek is first a consciousness, not a choreography. It is the holy art of declining to let the blow write your atmosphere. It does not forbid you to step aside. It forbids you to step inside the weather of revenge. You may speak the needed no, and you may do it without a storm in your breast. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. Matthew 5:37. Clear, clean, without drama. Non-resistance says, I will not enlist as stage crew for appearances. I will do the next right thing, but I will not keep the lights on for a second power. I knew a mother, we will call her Elena, who lived 2 months with a door that slammed and a hand that bruised. The counsel of fear told her that to leave would be defeat, and the counsel of rage told her to strike back and call it courage. One evening she sat in her closet, not the pantry, the prayer closet, and whispered, Speak, Lord. The word that rose was not strategy, it was identity. Thou art mine. Isaiah 43:1. She rose, God governed. That night she took her child and left. She filed a paper, she told the truth, she requested protection. But listen to the miracle. She did not take the abuser with her in consciousness. She would not rehearse him. She would not hate him for breakfast. She would not consult him to set her weather. Fear not, little flock. Luke 12:32. In a month, her house was quiet. In a year, her heart was clean. That is non-resistance, married to moral clarity. All right. Then where is the divide? Here. Moral action addresses conduct in the world. Metaphysical resistance is an interior idolatry that energizes the very show it claims to end. Moral action protects the neighbor. Metaphysical resistance protects the fear. Moral action stands on law and love. Metaphysical resistance stands on alarm. Give up the alarm. Take no thought. Matthew 6. You cannot use truth as a club to make wrong right. Now God can use us as instruments of quiet justice, steady kindness, and simple no's that need no thunder. This is how we confront wrongdoing without entering a two-power contest. We do what is right and refuse the inner theater. We withdraw consent from fear. We let our yes be yes and our no be no. We abide until direction is given. Then we act without hate, without hurry, without the fantasy that darkness is a presence. God is, or else God isn't. If God is, the contest is over in the heart before our feet ever move. And from that single government, our steps become plain. Now, if we are to stop lighting two altars, we must ask with honesty, what did the Master actually meet, and how did he meet it? He met sin, disease, lack, malice, storm, and even death. Yet never once did he organize a campaign against a second power. He walked as one who knew, I and my Father are one, John 10:30. And from that oneness he addressed appearances as one addresses shadows by letting the light be itself. God is, or else God isn't. If God is, then what you see in Jesus is the government of one showing forth. And you will find no inner siren, no fever of combat, no method that treats evil as a substance. Consider the sea day. The wind slapped the boat, the waves made speeches, the disciples had a weather report for God. The Master, he slept. That is not negligence. That is take no thought embodied, roused. He did not compose a storm-fighting liturgy. He stood in the government of one and said, Peace be still, Mark 4:39. And the wind ceased. Note this carefully. He did not wrestle the storm. He revealed peace. Not power against power, but presence displacing commotion. Prayer is something from God to you. In that hour, the Word in him spoke, and nature found herself under her own rightful law. Consider the woman dragged into daylight by righteousness without mercy. They had stones and verses. He had silence and presence. He stooped and wrote on the ground, refusing their tempo, refusing their theater, then lifted the one word that leaves no battlefield. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone, John 8-7. One by one the actors lost their line. To her he said, "Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more." John 8:11. Authority without warfare. He did not argue with sin as a rival substance. He unveiled innocence as the fact in God. The accusers had tried to make law a weapon. He revealed law as mercy's framework, where no second power receives promotion. Consider Bethany. He hears, he waits, he walks, and at a tomb where everyone has certified finality, he lifts his eyes. "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. I knew that thou hearest me always." John 11:41, 42. No pleading, no panic, no method, the acknowledgement of eternal communion. Then the word that is creative, not combative. "Lazarus, come forth." John 11:43. He did not battle death, he manifested life. You cannot use truth, truth can use us. Here the Father that indwelt him did the work while the servant stood in availability. Consider the hillside where lack counted heads and loaves. "Give ye them to eat." Luke 9:13. Sounded impossible to mathematical fear. The master refused the arithmetic of shortage. He looked up, blessed, broke, and distributed. Gratitude, not grappling. Assurance, not argument. "Your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of these things." Matthew 6:32. Supply answered to consciousness, not to commerce, and enough appeared without the noise of crisis management. Consider malice at its loudest. He passes through the midst of those who would hurl him from a cliff. Luke 4:30. Later, at Golgotha, with hands that cannot strike and a sky that will not open, he refuses the contest still. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23:34. "My kingdom is not of this world's jousts and judgments." John 18:36. He never let hatred draft him as a mirror. "The prince of this world cometh and hath nothing in me." John 14:30. Nothing, no consent, no fear, no second altar. What was his inner posture? He tells you, "I can of mine own self do nothing. As I hear, I judge." John 5:30. "The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works." John 14:10. He did not concentrate on evil. He abided in the Father. He did not gather facts to fight. He received the word that is fact. In him, prayer was not commentary. It was communion. From communion, the simple directive rose, "Peace. Neither do I condemn. Come forth, eat, forgive." Each word an unveiling, not a duel. And now the bridge to your next hour. The Christ principle is not a museum piece. It is the ever-present government to be realized. "Lo, I am with you always." Matthew 28:20. "Abide in me, and I in you." John 15:4. In the email that burns, in the symptom that knocks, in the bill that scowls, do not enroll in a contest. Enter your closet. Make a vacuum of yourself. Whisper, "Speak, Lord," and wait until assurance, not adrenaline, arrives. From that assurance, let the word be simple. A soft answer, a clear no, a quiet yes, a hand offered, a step taken, not to prove a point, but to reveal a presence. Resist not evil. Take no thought. God is or else God isn't. Stand in the one, and the many apparitions will find they have nowhere to stand. Now God can use us. Drop them out of your belief and they fall away. This is not poetry. It is spiritual mechanics. Evil does not die because you have shouted at it. It withers because it cannot find a believer to rent space from. If omnipotence is truth, tell me, what are these powers that you're fighting? God is or else God isn't. If God is, then every supposed rival lives on borrowed breath and borrowed attention. There is none else. Isaiah 45:5. If you keep furnishing the stage and paying the lighting bill with fear and fascination, the show will go on. If you close the theater and turn your face to the one, the actors have nowhere to speak. How is this done? When the suggestion comes, it's knocked soft at first, and then theatrical refuse narration, refuse analysis, refuse the impulse to consult your fears for expert commentary. Take no thought, Matthew 6. In the moment when the mind wants to become a reporter and a playwright and a prophet of doom, enter your closet and make a vacuum of yourself. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46:10. Whisper, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth, 1 Samuel 3-9. Stay until assurance arrives. Not more thoughts about the problem, assurance of presence. That assurance is government. It is law. It is the end of two powers in that hour. In that assurance, you are not ignoring appearances. You are starving them of belief. We no longer consult appearances to tell us what is true. We consult truth to tell us what an appearance is. We no longer rehearse outcomes. We rest in the one whose outcome is himself. We no longer build identity around struggle I, the brave battler. We accept identity as branch and vine. We no longer give daily briefings to God. We accept daily bread from God. We no longer set altars to fear. We keep the single altar of praise. We no longer draft strategies for shadow management. We abide until light is its own explanation. I knew a man, call him Jonas, who ran a small shop on a narrow street where gossip blew like dust. A rumor rose one week that he cheated weights. It was not true, but it was noisy, and Jonas felt the old fighter rise in him. He sharpened his tongue, planned his countersuits, saw imaginary tribunals, and lost 3 nights' sleep to a trial that never occurred. On the 4th night, exhausted, he went into the kitchen and sat in the dark. No report, no plan, only, speak, Lord. At first, his mind still shouted courtroom speeches, but after a while, a simple sentence descended, let not your heart be troubled, John 14:1. He did the next day what love required. He spoke to 2 neighbors calmly, weighed a few parcels in plain sight, kept his door and his courtesy open. Inside, however, he had dropped the rumor out of his belief. Without his fear to feed it, the tale ran out of breath. A week later, it was as if no one remembered. Jonas learned his town. More, he learned his God. The fight he had nearly staged would have been the payroll for a lie. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Exodus 14:13 is not passivity. It is the refusal to dignify a second power. Then, from stillness, you will be told a next right thing as simple as a step across the Red Sea. When it parts, sometimes the sea is paperwork to file. Sometimes it is bread to share. Sometimes it is silence where anger demanded a speech. But the mechanics remain. Appearances persist by belief and attention. Withdraw, consent, and they lose their stage. All right. Do not think of this as a one-time insight you hang like a diploma. This is daily work, gentle, faithful, hidden. I die daily, 1 Corinthians 15:31. To what? To the inner combatant, to the manager of opposites, to the narrator who makes idols of suggestions. He must increase, but I must decrease, John 3:30. Each morning we choose our altar. Take no thought. Abide in me, John 15:4. Fear not, little flock, Luke 12:32. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts, Colossians 3:15. And as the rule takes hold, you will witness the quiet fall of many former enemies. No trumpet, no parade, just shadows. Remember the shadows. Drop them out of your belief, and they fall away. Not because you have used truth, but because truth has used you as a place where no second altar stands. Die daily, 1 Corinthians 15:31. Do not make that a funeral hymn. Make it a doorway. What dies? not your aliveness, not your humor, not your God-given particularity. What dies is the inner combatant, the manager of opposites, the strategist of dread, the hero who needs a battlefield to feel important. The main business of a spiritual teaching is to kill off its people, oh yes, to have them die daily so that they may be reborn of the Spirit. He must increase, but I must decrease. John 3:30. Decrease what? The appetite for drama, the identity of being under continual attack, the pride of being the champion who wins in a universe of two powers. That is what is laid upon the altar. Let us name it. It is the taste for emergency that dies, the love of headlines in the mind, the thrill of recounting how narrowly we escape evil as if the story gave us stature. It is the inner narrator that keeps casting us in the role of brave fighter and keeps casting God in the role of distant backup. It is the winded way of living that needs a conflict to justify its prayers. Put it down. I can of mine own self do nothing, John 5:30. The fighter self cannot breathe in the climate of that sentence, and that is the point. Let it fade. Take no thought, Matthew 6. Refuse it oxygen. And what is born when that actor leaves the stage? Quiet authority, compassion without fear, discernment without paranoia, action without hatred. You become not a crusader proving God, but a witness revealing God. The branch does not posture, it abides. Abide in me and I in you. John 15:4. In that abiding, you will speak when speech is love's instrument, and you will keep silence when silence is love's authority. You will set a boundary without enlisting rage to draw the line. You will say no without needing to punish. This is not dullness, it is government. The government shall be upon his shoulder, Isaiah 9:6. Now God can use us. Some have asked, if I lay down the fighter, will I become a victim? Fear asks that, because fear cannot imagine any power that is not muscular. Hear the Master. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:32. The kingdom is not a battlefield. It is a present. To die daily to the inner combatant is not to lose your safety. It is to lose the superstition that safety is welded by your vigilance. You are not left alone in a dark room. You are brought under one light. Lo, I am with you always, Matthew 28:20. God is, or else God isn't. If God is, then laying down the sword is not foolishness. It is fidelity to the only power. How do we practice this dying that births? Not by dramatizing our dying, not by narrating our saintliness. We practice by refusing the inner contest at its first advertisement. We practice by entering the closet and making a vacuum of ourselves, saying only, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth." 1 Samuel 3-9. We practice by letting prayer be something from God to us until assurance arrives and the fighter finds no stage. We practice by taking no thought when thought wants a uniform and a drum, and when the urge to be the hero arises, oh, it will thank it for its service and let it retire. I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Galatians 2:20. That is the new birth speaking. You will know this dying has begun when your stories shorten and your silences lengthen, when your yes becomes simple and your no becomes clean, when the day's tasks are done without an audience in your head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good, Romans 12:21. Good here is not mood. It is the realized presence that refuses rivalry. As you die daily to the combatant, you will find fewer enemies outside because there is no one within to salute them. Resist not evil. Take no thought. God is, or else God isn't. Yield, and the old warrior will not survive the climate of love, and you will discover it was not a loss at all, but the birth of God-governed consciousness in which the kingdom ceases to be a promise and becomes the air you breathe. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:32. Let that sentence be the soft mantle on your shoulders now. We have spoken sharply to the fighter in us, but listen, God has not left you to weather the world alone with bare skin and brave slogans. The kingdom is not a fortress you must garrison. It is a presence that garrisons you. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. Shadow here is not dimness. It is the cool of an overarching love intelligence that knows before you know, sees before you see, and goes before you go. Safety is not a ritual you perform. It is the atmosphere of realized presence. We must be rid of superstition, even the religious kind. Superstition believes that safety is welded by formulas, many words, many postures, little charms of thought. It believes if we say it thrice, the night will behave. Beloved, your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. Matthew 6:32. Protection is not a trick, it is a nature. God is or else God isn't. If God is omnipresent love, then safety is the natural climate of that love realized, not a favor granted because we remembered the right sentence at the right time. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Psalm 23:4. Not because I have strong shoulders, because thou art with me. How then does discernment move without warfare? Gently, clearly, and on time. As many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. Romans 8:14. There are hours when the inner nudge says, cross the street now. Do it without narrating danger into a dragon. There are meetings where the word in you says, keep silence, send the email tomorrow. Keep silence without building a cathedral to fear. There are homes you must leave, doors you must lock, calls you must make. Do them without setting a second altar in the breast. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, Matthew 10:16. Wisdom recognizes an appearance and steps aside. Harmlessness refuses to turn the appearance into a sacrament of panic. No sirens within, no heroics, just the quiet step that love lights. You may ask, but how will I know it is love and not anxiety? By its fruit. Anxiety shouts and hurries. Love speaks and settles. Anxiety must explain itself with paragraphs. Love can afford a sentence. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, John 14:27. When the guidance arrives in peace, it carries its own authority. Prayer is something from God to you. Discernment is one of its ordinary gifts. We do not use truth to manufacture safety. Truth uses us to reveal the safety that already is. You cannot use truth. Now God can use us. Let us be plain about what we lay down. We lay down fear-based warfare, the talismanic use of verses, the bargaining with heaven, the nightly inventory of threats dressed as piety. We lay down the compulsion to check locks in consciousness as if omnipresence depended on our vigilance. We lay down the superstition that anger is a shield. What do we take up? Take no thought, Matthew 6:25. Not indifference, innocence. Not negligence, trust. God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1-7. A sound mind does not manufacture enemies at noon, nor rehearse battles at midnight. A sound mind abides, listens, and moves simply. Make this your lived rule for the next hour. When fear knocks, refuse the conversation. Enter your closet, make a vacuum of yourself, and whisper, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. 1 Samuel 3-9. Wait until assurance, not adrenaline, arrives. From that assurance, take the step you are given, no more, no less. If the step is to speak, speak softly. If it is to leave, leave quietly. If it is to forgive, forgive without audience. In this way, you will discover that safety without superstition is not a theory but a weather. It is the shepherd's governance felt in the bones. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee, yea, I will uphold thee. Isaiah 41-10. Resist not evil, take no thought. Fear not, little flock. When God is known as omnipresent, love the armory empties itself, and the heart finds that its walls were presence all along. All right, for the next 24 hours, let us agree on a quiet experiment. Not a campaign, an abiding upon waking. Before you greet the phone, the mirror, or the morning, greet God. Not with a report, not with a plan. Sit on the edge of the bed or stand at the window and make a vacuum of yourself. Speak, Lord. Thy servant heareth. 1 Samuel 3-9. Do not decorate the silence. Let it decorate you. Wait until assurance, not adrenaline, arrives. When it does, do not seize it to use it. Let it use you. Prayer is something from God to you. In the rush of the day, when the email stings, when the body speaks loudly, when a voice in the hallway sounds like last year's trouble, pause, put down the inner megaphone, close the lips, still the commentary. If you can, step into a literal closet or walk outside for a minute. If you cannot move your feet, move your attention from the appearance to the altar within. Whisper only this: resist not evil, Matthew 5:39. Take no thought, Matthew 6:25. Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Then be still for 3 breaths, 5 if you can. This is not an argument, it is consent to. 1. If something must be done, it will rise in you as a simple next step carrying peace as its credential. Let me set our guardrails and let them be uncompromising. For the next day, never again report evil to God. He is not your clerk, and he is not behind on the news. Your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of these things, Matthew 6:32. Never again ask fear what is real. Fear is a bad theologian and a worse prophet. Never again rehearse battles. Drop the courtroom in your head. It wins no cases and charges heavy fees. Never again attempt to use truth as a tool against the second power. You cannot use truth. Now, truth can use us. We will practice small obediences. Each hour, when you notice the time or set a chime, if that helps, turn inward for 10 seconds and touch the refrain, resist not evil. Take no thought. Speak, Lord. That is all, no show, no strain. Between these touches, do what love requires. Answer the child, send the note, keep the appointment, lock the door, tell the truth, give the coin, but do it without an altar to fear inside. Moral action remains, the metaphysical contest ends. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, Matthew 5:37. Clean, clear, without theater. You will be tempted to narrate. The mind will say, yes, yes, but what about tomorrow? And what about that symptom? And what about that person with a talent for ruin? Decline the debate. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. God is, or else God isn't. If God is, then 2 powers do not exist. Appearances have lost their payroll the moment you withhold belief. If an action is needed, it will not require you to heat your heart to a boil to perform it. It will come as a sentence that settles, a call to make, a boundary to draw, a forgiveness to grant, a meal to share. Anxiety needs paragraphs, love can afford a sentence. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. John 14:27. At day's end, before sleep, return to the beginning. Not a post-mortem, not a scorecard. Sit in the dark a moment and say, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and thou hearest me always. John 11:41-42. Let the day fall back into the one from which it came. If you faltered, do not stage a trial. If you forgot, begin again. The kingdom is not earned, it is received. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:32. This is our practice for the next 24 hours. Abide, listen, refuse the contest. Keep moral clarity. End metaphysical rivalry. Take no thought for the performance. Let presence perform itself as peace, as guidance, as the next right thing. Resist not evil. Take no thought. Speak, Lord. God is, or else God isn't. Stand in the one quietly and discover that it is enough.